Recording is in progress.
All right, so thank you very much, Andrew, one more time. So welcome to the Indigenous Global Unity Summit, week 38 of our IGU Summit. And so as always, I do start these events every week by having or saying a land acknowledgement. So the first thing I do is say that we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous people, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources, and we're committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and is now home to many diverse peoples. We'd also like to acknowledge the land we're on is at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty. We thank them and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land with us, and we also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. So again, I will share my screen. Let me just start the presentation and go back to the Zoom to share my screen here. And it's just somebody let me know when they see that. The other thing I do now, as I have done for a few weeks now, is to announce sort of events that are coming up between now and our next event. There is one sort of important event that is coming up, and that is Zero Discrimination Day, which is actually on Tuesday, March 1st. So Zero Discrimination Day is an annual day celebrated on March 1st each year by the UN and other international organizations. The day aims to promote equality before the law and in practice throughout all of the member countries of the UN. The day was first celebrated on March 1st, 2014, and was launched by UNAIDS. So I'll put that information along with the link into the chat. So again, as always, I start this presentation by giving recognition to our supporters and sponsors. Andrew Networks, which had replaced EdFu Foundation, is our primary sponsor of the Global Unity Network, which are these Zoom calls every Thursday through to December 29th, 2023. Andrew Networks also rebroadcasting these production-ready episodes on the AHIABGA.org domain, redirected to UnityNet site. You'll notice the change in our opening logo, where the Eventbrite page and our logo indicates this is the 2023 IGU Summit event. We plan to continue delivering these Thursday events until the end of 2023, again, in alignment with the UN Global Compact 21 to 23 vision and strategy, which I have and will put into the chat as well. So you'll see the logos on this page for the Maui Aloha Project, the 5 Points Youth Foundation, the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, Future Lit Foundation, Global Peace Let's Talk. The Community Development Foundation has been removed, along with the Global Women's Development Network, but the American International Education Federation as well, and EdFu Foundation and others will be discussed. So again, some of the links to these groups are being put into the chat. Just a second, it takes the system Put this into the information. Our sponsors, Andrew Networks, as our primary sponsor, supporting the promotional ecosystem for the Global Unity Network initiative through to December 2023. It is Andrew Networks that donates our hosting and promotional support services. Andrew Networks being a brand and domain name owned by RxDC Export Trading Company, comprising the various social media channels, including TRN TV, the Universal Citizens Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr., and many more. Again, into the chat, you'll find those links. So Andrew also founded this ad hoc international advisory board, Goodwill ambassadors, advocates, and activists. He did so in September 2019. We do focus on localizing the Sustainable Development Goals during this decade of action and delivery on the SDGs 2020-2030. Andrew did appoint me as an ad hoc international advisory board Goodwill ambassador, representative for Canada, La Francophonie, and the Commonwealth of Nations in January 2020, with later adding Turtle Island representation in 2021. Again, the Goodwill ambassadors link in the chat. So my name, Lloyd Halferty. I am the Chief Ecosystem Director, Program Development Director, and Sustainable Society Consultant for Energize University, headquartered in Manhattan. I'm located in Markham, Greater Toronto Area, Southern Ontario, Canada. Energize University, a private 501(c)(3) nonprofit company in New York, a member of the UN Global Compact, created to help empower global populations to reestablish sustainable balance to their local environments. Energize does this by designing and implementing projects to support a strong and diversified local economy while integrating core sustainable technologies and infrastructure into the communities in the areas of renewable energy, high density food growth, managing waste streams, and protecting local water resources. So Energize is supported by over 375 companies whose products and technologies we employ, supports local education and training in the construction, deployment, and maintenance of the integrated solutions for achieving closed loop systems that support self-sufficient, sustainable economies. Again, my information and contacts are in the chat. So I am also the co-founder and administrator of the We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Civil Society organization that is seeking to undertake life value peace education in the context of life learning gardens. So this is one of the important collaborative organizations for our network. So I was also designated, as indicated, as a Goodwill ambassador for the 5 Points Youth Foundation in Los Angeles, with a portfolio that covers Canada, La Francophonie, Commonwealth of Nations, and Turtle Island communities. As this member, seeking to empower our communities to engage with royal, Indigenous, and tribal leadership, as well as building interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, or INABCs, which are seeking to leave no one behind. So again, in the chat are some links. So I'm also co-founder of the Global Unity Business Group, which did come together as a coalition of small businesses in order to establish, manage, and grow this Global Unity Network. The Global Unity Business Group is a humanitarian enterprise, global sustainable and regenerative development corporation, supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source, regenerative, climate smart infrastructure set up as life learning gardens, along with a hybrid virtual learning platform that we call the VCN, or Interchange for Peace. The Global Unity Business Group was created in order to formalize a process of localization of global goals, starting with the SDGs, developed by the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board members, which is being done by the establishment of this Global Unity Network, which includes a number of important networks like the Unity Gardens Network, the Unity Learning Network, and a number of dedicated Unity networks, being these important nodes of our network, with the existing social media, WhatsApp and Facebook, LinkedIn groups we're using now, being developed as placeholders as we build our global network, prepare to eventually launch into this virtual collaborative network, the VCN, where every one of our members will be able to gain access to many of the tools and services that are available there, where they can more easily collaborate in order to implement globally coordinated real-world projects. So again, the business group link is in the chat. So the Global Unity Network was created to showcase global cooperation for the implementation of the local regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the 17 SDGs. So our goal is to help uplift the traditionally marginalized communities that are mostly being left behind because the existing economic paradigm focused on making money for those who are already wealthy by extracting resources through the exploitation, usually overexploitation of people and the natural world. Therefore, the majority of people on Earth are mostly being ignored by our existing highly competitive economy. So the focus is on the billions of people who exist or subsist on the economic sidelines, where we intend to start our work by delivering solutions for people and communities in some of the least developed countries, communities, and local economies that are in particular the most food insecure. So in that, you will see the social media link. So the Global Unity Network is promoting the delivery of practical solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the Sustainable Development Goals. During this SDG period until 2030, we are focused on using tools of humanitarian entrepreneurship, focusing on female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs and enterprises, using a hybrid virtual and hands-on education and training and learning program platform. These platforms being the primary focus on delivery of humanitarian entrepreneurship skills training in these practical settings or practical learning, along with leveraging open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions to remotely assist local INABC teams to establish these local open source Unity Garden classrooms in all of the local communities around the world. So where the Unity Garden classrooms are set up actually in conjunction with existing schools in local communities, it can be used for the local remote and virtual delivery of the practical learning programs for those FFHE to learn how to grow, process, cook, market, sell, and trade the various types of regenerative climate smart food and related nutritional and medicinal and other types of locally produced regenerative products, both within their own local communities, as well as regionally, nationally, continentally, and internationally, in order to produce income and therefore greater prosperity for their local communities and for all people on all continents, with the intention and goal of leaving no one behind. So into that, I put in, for instance, the smart cities network that we have. So we also do promote through our virtual social marketing all of the members of our network, and we use the various practical social media networking and trade tools, plus those of the modern fourth industrial revolution, combining the wisdom of the crowds along with deep Indigenous knowledge of both our ancestors and the living Indigenous people of this earth, in order to learn from each other about how to share the abundance of this planet, in order to create productive, regenerative, climate smart landscapes wherever we may live, in and around each and all of our local communities. So our intention is to help restore nature and biodiversity, to ensure abundance for all, and ultimately restore the human connection to Mother Earth as proper stewards of our one and only beautiful planet. And again, I put in an important node of network is the Unity Biodiversity Network. So at this point, after this quick opening, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, if they are on the line. I'm just looking right now to see who is there. I don't see everybody, I don't think. But we are intending to have Joanna Siam, or Siame, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name, from Malawi today as our guest presenter. And I did get a message from her this morning saying that she should be able to do the presentation this morning. I did have that from her. However, I do not see her on the line at this time. She wrote me a message this morning. I am ready. So did anybody see her on our call today?
No, Professor Lloyd, and unfortunately I didn't see her. I think, submit, bring in a Joe, but I don't think it was Joanna. I'm also not seeing her on the group.
Yeah, okay. So, well, perhaps what I can do is continue until she comes on with the presentation today. So I'll just go to the next slide then. And if somebody does see her coming into the chat, we can just notify me and I can stop and then let her go on to do her presentation. To continue, we are intending to use this Global Unity Network virtual collaborative network hybrid learning model delivered through both the Unity Gardens for the hands-on experiential practical learning, as well as through digital VCN that bundles all of the various functions of the individual websites into a single site. This collaborative portal allows for all the digital virtual learning to be delivered alongside the place where e-commerce can also take place. So it is what's called an all-in-one platform for trade, commerce, and learning, bundled into a single platform where the DCN uses a digital collaborator engine intended to turbocharge the networking, exchange, trade, and education delivery capabilities of and for the members of the network. It's also called the PXN, or Partner Exchange Ecosystem, with the digital collaboration technology helping organizations in 6 areas of digital transformation in terms of leadership, digital strategy, customer intimacy, business service design, agile transformation, and health check analysis of their organizations. So we do believe that this VCN platform can help every organization become an agile organization for the 21st century, helping them move beyond this current health pandemic, with the VCN intended to be a stepping stone toward this new vision of the internet called the metaverse, which has had a lot of attention, of course, with the renaming of Facebook to Meta, which of course refers to this metaverse concept, which is starting to be seen in some places. So we have as well the business group managing the Global Unity Network geographically by helping to create these localized country, regional, and continental UnityNet local business development networks, which serve to manage the local and community networks, the regional and continental Unity Network organizations organizing themselves according to concepts called sociocracy, that assist communities in each country to establish these local and regional community engagement teams called the INAB collaboratives, or the INABCs, the Interfaith Neighborhood Academic and Business Collaboratives. But the primary purpose of both the business and the network is to promote the ad hoc international advisory board goodwill ambassador process of localization of the global goals, specifically by promoting processes that can help local communities establish the partnerships as per SDG 17 that support the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are dedicated to implementing this local regenerative community-based enterprise solutions for achieving the global goals. Again, link in the chat to this concept of socioculture. So I actually want to go and talk about the purpose of Global Unity Network, being essentially to use this ad hoc international advisory board process of localization of the global goals. It's a community engagement process in order to assist local communities establish and maintain the local and regional interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, the AHIABGA collaboratives, in each local community according to the multi-stakeholder HEPTA matrix partnership template shown here. So the partnership between Drawdown Markham, CSO, 5.2 Youth Foundation, NGO, done through this We Energize Global Cooperation, Turtle Island International Civil Society Organization, has a mandate to deliver life value peace education within the context of life learning gardens, which we now call Unity Gardens. So under the framework of cooperation that was created, rather than just looking at these projects on a one-by-one basis, the Global Unity Network is creating and establishing this global support network to help establish the local support networks of professionals in each local community where the projects are to be implemented. And where ultimately the design and assessments of the projects are not done by the people who are remote to the communities of the projects, but by the trusted people in those local networks who are living closest to the projects, especially the beneficiaries and those who are currently the most marginalized in each community. So again, I'm some information in the chat about this concept of localization. So our goals are also to support and uplift people in marginalized communities through the delivery of the learning programs, practical hands-on education and training, to promote all of the youth and female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs around the world who either have or wish to implement these replicable regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the SDGs. We focus on regenerative solutions that can be localized one community at a time, starting in the least developed countries, communities, and economies, the LDCCEs, by working with the people who have been most forgotten and marginalized, with the intention of, as we say, leaving no one behind. So then, information about open source hardware is being placed in the chat. So our philosophy is that machines are not the economy. People doing things is what makes an economy. So if we can lift people out of poverty, better yet, empower them to lift themselves from poverty, we'll have automatically injected new life into the global economy. The goal of the Global Unity Network is therefore uplifting the bottom billions, the ultimate goal being teaching people how to feed themselves the climate smart way, where we can think of the old saying, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. The Unity Network is about teaching especially women and youth to fish, so they no longer need to be fed the next day when they're hungry again. So we focus on promoting and demonstrating only open source solutions, as in open source regenerative climate smart food growing infrastructure, set up as these Unity Garden classrooms at and with schools, including universities, colleges, and high schools. Also, I can send anybody who wishes to see a 4-page PDF document that does describe this Global Unity Network in more detail. But for now, I put in some links. So one of our key programs is called the CTP program, or Collaborative Tree Planting Program. It was created originally in order to help enable local management and adaptation to long-term social, economic, and planetary impacts, to also help create legacy forests for people, biodiversity, and the planet, and to help secure energy and food resources, climate resilience, and poverty alleviation. So we do aim to teach people about how they can implement various rural and urban holistic sustainability infrastructure that we're promoting. We help to deliver this knowledge to people who are in the local communities throughout our network. The learning programs of our network partners would be delivered through the lens of what's called humanitarian entrepreneurship, education, and training programs, especially for youth, educators, and decision makers of all kinds. And through this process of local communities can come together create the INAB collaboratives through these commemorative tree plantings that are part of a 400th and 800th anniversary Tree of Peace and Reconciliation ceremonial initiative, many of which have already taken place in cities and communities around the world since late 2019, most recently in Hawaii. So the original Quinn Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting first took place here in Canada, in Pickering, in Bermuda, in the summer of 2020. These were the precursor to these ongoing tree plantings that are part of a social enterprise arrangement with Forest Nation and their You Plant, We Plant program through the We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Organization, which is working closely with Plant for the Planet organization and intends to plant 1 trillion trees around the world over the next few decades. So again, I'm putting some information into the chat about this partnership. So we are supporting and work in partnership with the Unity programs of the local Unity Network organizations that have been established and continue to be established around the world that deliver these projects, campaigns, and events. So the Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremonies, the Sunlight Spectacle virtual edutainment events and shows, along with these Indigenous Global Unity Summit series events happening now, which will continue to take place until the end of the year. We also have something called Coordinated International Global Fund Festivals. And I wanted to mention supporting work of the Global Women's Development Network. However, this is probably the last time I will be mentioning this group. I'd like to put some information about the International Global Fund Network into the chat. So we are also supporting Global Unity Pandemic Group and their initiatives as well, which is where this all began. So again, into the chat, I am putting some information about the original Toronto Local Greater Unity Pandemic team, the pre-pandemic GTA, which was the beginning of this whole journey that we are on. So I wanted to talk also of the Life Learning Gardens. We are supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure set up as what we call Life Learning Gardens, designed for the delivery of the hands-on practical learning programs, supporting the life value peace education. So these infrastructure solutions are called CSV Gardens, Victory Forests, Climate Smart Kitchens, Spark Learning Centers, or Climate Smart Education Training Centers, and Wheel of Life farms and farm schools. So I just put some information about them into the chat. So our projects include what we call a Sacred Site and Watershed Mapping Project, CTP program, or Collaborative Tree Planting Initiative for Twinning Communities, along with collaboration for the development of a system of payments for ecosystem services for certified climate smart products that help to promote and sequester carbon that are made by our humanitarian enterprises that are helping to implement these local solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the SDGs. Some of the other key campaigns include a Dream Boards in Every Community campaign to establish local community dream boards, where we help to mobilize the youth and help to turn their dreams into reality, along with a tea diplomacy initiative that connects local farmers, growers, and entrepreneurs across geographies and among members of communities that may not otherwise ever get a chance to talk to each other and get to know each other as people, with the idea being to sit down, even if only virtually, to have tea, relax, and discuss local solutions to global problems like food security, hunger, climate change, the environment, peace, security, and the well-being of people and environments in each of our own local communities. So the people who would participate in the tea diplomacy initiatives would also discuss what kinds of teas they like to drink, what healthy foods they like to eat while drinking their tea, what unique teas they might grow in their own local communities or region, and the importance of the teas to their local people and cultures. So again, I put in some information about that. I wanted to mention as well, UnityNet Africa as our first continental Unity Network development network, UnityNet Africa and Diaspora as it's called, intended to be a safe place for cooperative discussion with others in the Global Unity Network as we develop our first continental network for all of the people of Africa and for eventual replication across all countries worldwide, starting with the least developed countries, communities, and economies. So the initial board of directors for the African Continental Unity Network listed in this slide. The new board has confirmed an official advisory board. We have Carlos Richard Sanko from UnityNet Sierra Leone as the continental president, Mary Ifeanyi from Nigeria as the new vice continental president, Sierra Leone being an important node, country chapter, with being the oldest Global Unity Network chapter, with now 10 trees of peace and reconciliation already planted in communities across the country, serving as a precursor for the creation of those local INAP collaboratives and the establishment of the Unity Garden classroom infrastructure. So the new board of directors was put together in a way to try to represent the 6 regions of Africa, and the selection process also made an attempt to achieve gender balance by ensuring about half the board members and leaders were women, as per SDG 5 gender equality. The African team now working in cooperation with existing Global Unity Network country chapters in Africa to create a model for the development of this continental and regional network of networks by working with the grassroots people in the country chapters. The African model, we would like to eventually replicate that to create country chapters across all 55 African nations, also establish a formal dialogue and connection to the African Union with the African success for a continental network, not just being for Africa, but also being a template for other continents and countries around the world, where we focus our efforts as always on the least developed countries, communities, and economies, and the communities that are furthest being left behind as per LMOB, which I will put in some links into the chat for people to learn more about. So we are also planning to link the North American Turtle Island and African agendas across time and space, linking our programs together in a way that makes sense by developing what we call the reverse CTP program, modeled on the original CTP, developed by Drawdown Markham in late 2019. The business group has its home in Canada, but we have this strong support and involvement from Sierra Leone, Kenya, and the US. I'd also like for everyone on this call to consider joining one of our following groups that I will put into the chat for the Global Unity Network. The social media discussions created by the Global Unity Business Group, which is a humanitarian enterprise and global sustainable and development, or sustainable and regenerative development corporation that's supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure set up as life learning gardens, or what we call Unity Gardens. So I want to mention other critical nodes again of the Global Unity Network, especially the Regenerative Living, Learning, and Lifestyle Network, the Learning Network, the Health Network, the Eco Village Network, the Indigenous Global Unity Network, as well as the Unity Environment and Biodiversity Networks, along with a Peace Centers Network, a Children and Youth Network, a Smart Communities and Cities Network, a Social Business Network, a Climate Smart Tourism Network, supporting and aligning with the tourism for SDGs mandates, and a Women's and Feminist Network, which is active right now, essentially for our humanitarian entrepreneur business owners and managers, to have conversations, exchange tips, tricks, ideas among themselves. And we also have, of course, another various other critical networks and nodes in our network. But most recently, as well, Unity Water Network, established, designed to address all of the various water sustainability issues related to the achievement of the global goals as we attempt to transition to a regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So with the water network, we have established a localized net zero team as well, supporting the creation of this campaign for localization of the global goals, focused on cities as well, who are attempting to achieve their net zero ambitions, focusing our attention on the C40s network through a proposed partnership between GHH organization, the UN Global Compact, the C40 Cities Network, and the C4 group, and all of the people and in all of the cities of the world who are members, especially of the C40, but especially also for every marginalized person in every city, country, and local community and economy on Earth, inclusive, of course, of all Africans and all Indigenous people of the world. So this is a local project of UnityNet GTA, coordinated through our founder of the Indigenous Unity flag, whose cousin is also a famous hip hop artist here in Toronto. So I will put in information about the networks that I just mentioned, some of them, into the chat so that people can choose to join these networks. Okay, so choose. Last localized net zero link. So the Global Unity Network is being created to promote everyone equally who is willing to work together with us in solidarity toward the achievement of the global goals, not just for the success of their own business. Within the Global Unity Network, the health of people and planet must be placed front and center. The first purpose of the Global Unity Network, though, is to help establish a global network of these local INAB collaboratives. So this being a very important aspect of what we actually do. So I wanted to note the name, interfaith, neighborhood, academic, and business collaboratives, INAB collaboratives, as per this HEPA matrix partnership template shown on this slide. So the Global Unity Network has a specific focus on a specific area of development, which is hybrid, virtual, and hands-on practicum education and training in the context of and for regenerative development solutions, for which we intend to assist people in local communities to build and demonstrate at least one of the 5 different regenerative climate smart infrastructure.
Excuse me, Lloyd,
solutions.
are you
Yes.
aware that you're not sharing your screen? I just happened to notice.
Oh, my Zoom says
No, I see
sharing.
his screen. I see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on the wrong. I was on my phone. I apologize. I was in the wrong place.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
I was thinking there was a problem. Okay, so let's go back to the Global Unity Network, specific focus, education and training, regenerative development solutions, where we intend to assist people in local communities build and demonstrate at least one of the 5 different regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions in their own local communities in collaboration with the existing local learning institutions. So our intention is that the Unity Garden solutions will be able to address at least 2 of the sustainable development goals, the first being zero hunger, and the second being climate action. So again, in the chat, I put the information about these 2 important goals. So we are building a global network that cuts across all areas of humanitarian entrepreneurship learning as they relate to the implementation of the local solutions for achieving the global goals that are related to the specific focus on climate smart food and related regenerative development solutions that help humanity to move beyond the sustainable development goals and hopefully into a new era of regenerative development, however that might be defined post 2030. So we are starting a conversation about 8 years ahead of the transition to the next phase of the global goals post 2030, where the SDGs are in now a second phase of what's called the Millennium Development Project to achieve peace on Earth in a way that leaves no one behind. So this larger Millennium Development Project intends that all of humanity can be uplifted and empowered to achieve their highest potential. And with that, I mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the definition by the 5 Points Youth Foundation for this concept of regenerative development, which is also included in the links in the chat. So this is a complicated graphic showing the Unity network as it existed probably months ago. Unity Network Africa and Diaspora, shown on this, is the very first continental chapter of the Global Unity Network. Continental chapters created in order to facilitate the establishment of the country chapters on the specific continent or geographical jurisdiction where the continental chapter has responsibility. The country chapters are created in order to facilitate the establishment of those local INAB collaboratives, the interfaith, neighborhood, academic, and business collaboratives in the local communities, so in each local community. Oops. The INAB collaboratives, the INABCs, are established in the local level where we leverage the unique process of community engagement, initially through the planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation tree planting ceremonies, followed by ongoing community engagement and interaction through regularly scheduled events throughout the year, including the coordinated Bubble Fun festivals done in collaboration with the local INAB collaborative members, the CTP program for twinning community activities, and to do community organized tree plantings and other local regenerative community infrastructure development projects and events. The Tea Diplomacy Initiative, as I had described, the Dream Boards Initiative done in collaboration with the C4 group members, identification of engagement, as well with local talent, artists, creative people in the Orange economy, for the purpose of promoting and showcasing their talent, especially in promoting the localization of the global goals and the regenerative economy during any one of our periodic sunlight spectacle and other edutainment events, as we call it. So the network, the nodes, the INAB collaboratives would also support any other programs and activities developed in the context of the CSV Gardens or the Victory Forests, which are delivered by FBSC Canada, along with the Climate Smart Kitchens delivered by Community Kitchens, the Wheel of Life Farms delivered by an organization called EPWT or ESRLA, and the Smart Learning Centers or Climate Smart Learning Centers delivered by Podnet Co-op. So again, into the chat, I put in some of the links. So I wanted to note the Unity Gardens of the Global Unity Network encourage what we call co-learning, intercultural collaboration, and what is called two-eyed seeing, with the Unity Gardens being places where children are taught, especially that no one being is greater than the next, that we're part and parcel of the whole, that we are equal, that each one of us has a responsibility to the balance of the system, and an understanding that all of the world's species, all of our bio and eco-kill have contributions to make. I wanted to also include in the chat information about what's called two-eyed seeing, or a huapmum, guiding principle for intercultural collaboration at the websites that I am posting right now. So the November 27th last year, we did establish discussions within the Global Unity Network, a couple of them. First, the Global Unity 4K Clubs Network, established with Susan Yego from Kenya, Ambassador Dr. Mary Solanke from Nigeria, members of the network beginning the process of organizing the development of standard learning modules can be customized and aligned to local school curriculum. where these modules are to be delivered in the context of the Unity Gardens by the members and partners of the local INABCs that have been established in each local community, where the Unity Network continental country and regional chapters have been established. So I wanted to put chat the Unity Working Club Network link. Another important connection we established was with Tukatan EV Germany. Last year, we initiated this preliminary discussion about the establishment of Tukatan EV Canada NGO organization, already delivering. They are already delivering Tukatan Women Empowerment Project in Africa, but in Canada, we'd like to establish the Tukatan EV Canada NGO to apply the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board process of localization of the global goals in all of our local communities, so that we can establish the local CSOs, those local INABCs, which are the local organizations that will be delivering the Global Unity 4K Club learning programs to help uplift youth and FFHEs intergenerationally and across geographies, and help bridge the gap between urban and rural in order to achieve our objectives of delivering quality education through partnerships. So although Tukatan EV Canada will also be assisting our colleagues in Germany to establish a UnityNet continental chapter in Europe, so with a focus on their efforts in supporting homeless and displaced people, such as economic conflict or climate migrants. So again, in the chat, I put in some information about the planet. So one of the reasons for establishing the UnityNet Children and Youth Network was in order to support and establish a pool of experts for those who are organizing the globally coordinated Climate Smart Youth Forum, hybrid, virtual and in-person event that would like to take place as a key part of the Global Unity Network yearly activities, which this year has been offered to take place during the Lagos Peace Awards ceremony hosted by Yeli International in Nigeria, in partnership with UnityNet Nigeria, and with, of course, support from UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, culminating on World Food Day, October 16th, 2022. The Climate Smart Youth Forum Week actually happens during the 13 days between October 4th, which is Global Cooperation Day, and October 16th, which is World Food Day, with the events and activities and contributions being able to take place in or come from any country during that period of time. Presentations and activities can be recorded and delivered remotely, or all people who are members of the network globally. This can be done hopefully through the Interchange for Peace VCF. So the primary host this year is UnityNet Nigeria, since they did a pre-launch event last year on the same date. And Dr. Monday Amadou from Yeli International, the Youth Education and Leadership Initiative, is supposed to be working with this team in Nigeria in cooperation with other members of the Global Unity Network and the UnityNet African Diaspora to launch this first, what we hope will become the Global Unity Network's big annual event that happens every year in at least one country of the world during those days between Global Cooperation Day and World Food Day. So the Unity Children and Youth Network is one of those related networks supporting this event. So during Global Climate Smart Youth Forum Week, we're also proposing the local INAB collaboratives, if they are already ready to do so, and if they have plans, can participate in the globally coordinated community tree planting campaigns to establish first 3D polyculture food forests in local communities across Africa and around the world, where the communities begin establishing victory forest unity gardens, which serve also as sacred spaces in their local communities, in collaboration with at least one or more local learning institutions, where the Unity Gardens would be configured for the delivery of the Global Unity 4K Club humanitarian entrepreneurship learning programs to all local youth and FFHE in the specific local communities. So the Unity Garden sacred spaces established in local communities through the twinned planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation that take place on World Environment Day on June 5th, during what we call the Abraham Project Tree of Peace and Reconciliation Showcase Project for Global Cooperation event designed for establishing a global network of local INAB collaboratives, the Interfaith Neighborhood Academic and Business collaboratives in every local community that participates through this, again, CTP program, the Collaborative Tree Planting Program. The intent of the entire campaign is to establish the Global Unity Network Unity Gardens in every local community around the world and support programs such as Canada's promise to plant 2 billion trees, along with the Great Green Wall Initiative in Africa, the 100 million tree plantation initiative that was launched in 2007 by the African Union, described as a game-changing African-led initiative aiming to restore Africa's degraded landscapes and transform millions of lives in one of the poorest regions of the Sahel. So the goal of the Global Unity Network is bigger. This is a private sector initiative. It does not rely on taxpayer money, but we do aim to plant, if we can, 15 billion trees in local communities across Africa, established, of course, as the Victory Forest Unity Gardens, with as many of these gardens established as we can over the next 8 years or so by 2030, but with yearly tree planting campaigns continuing into the next phase of global goals post 2030, with hopefully this continuing until at least the year 2063 in alignment with the African Union's Agenda 2063, with the task of the UnityNet Africa and Diaspora in this year being to help the rest of the members of the Global Unity Network flesh out the details of the plan, bring that plan to the Executive Council of the African Union so that all the countries and governments and civil society organizations and businesses across Africa, and hopefully also around the world, can begin to get behind this plan. So again, I'm putting some links into the chat for some of the important nodes in our network that are related to this. So the Global Unity Network, we are all needing to be open to learning from each other in order to get the best of all wisdoms, so that we can come to a healthy middle ground and a place that will hopefully have all of us emerge into a world that benefits the maximum number of people, the maximum number of species and environments that we live in, where we must learn to live in harmony, not just with ourselves, but also with nature as well. What the Indigenous people of Turtle Island actually refer to as all our relations. So all of the other living things on this planet from which our bodies are constructed. So all of the members of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board are attempting to, what we say, rewrite the playbook on how to engage with all people around the world by helping to uplift all of humanity, move us beyond this era of colonialism. This big project of our lifetimes, big challenge for an entire generation of young people around the world to try and achieve, but hopefully by working together with our elders and in solidarity with all others, including Indigenous people, in the context of climate change and biodiversity loss and all of these other issues right now, including waste management and pollution issues, which are causing widespread contamination of our ecosystems, including CO2 emissions, along with plastics and toxics. We can find ways to reverse the trends and change the way we grow food, especially, and the elimination of the chemicals used in industrial farming, like glyphosate, and the antibiotics, which means anti-life chemicals designed to kill mostly the microbiome, what is actually the thing that keeps us alive, what's in our guts, that allows us to digest food. So this is why our Global Unity Network is actually seeking to help uplift marginalized people so that we can work together to teach the next generation of young people how they can feed the world through systems that keep us healthy, develop learning and activities that they undertake through the local businesses that they'll establish that can also help to restore the environment and tackle these big issues like climate change, adapt to these, where we do this learning delivery through the lens of what's called humanitarian entrepreneurship. So again, into the chat, I put in this concept of regenerative living and learning and lifestyles.
Sorry, Professor Lloyd.
Yes.
Sorry to interject. Our guest speaker, okay, let's see if she's trying to come in. She was struggling. She sent a message that she was struggling with connectivity. So I don't know whether she's still going to try. And she's been trying to connect for a while. So I don't know how we can assist her.
So perhaps once she gets on, if you could, if I could ask you if you could message her to make to speak. And just let us know when she's able to speak. I think in the meantime, I can continue on this until I hear her voice.
Professor Anyanyu has had his hand or her hand up for a while.
Oh, okay. I'm not looking at my other screen there. We can.
Okay, Professor.
Yes, Lloyd. Perhaps you could make a break now, and we can introduce our new guest, and then come back to your presentation unless our guest speaker is here. If that would be okay with you.
Yeah. No, that's good. Let's take a break.
Prophet, please, your hand is raised. Please introduce yourself, and also in the chat, make sure everyone includes your contact information, your organization, etc. Prophet, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I wasn't sure if this was a place to ask this question. I think I've been here before. I have been tied up with some family crisis for a number of months. So I wanted to kind of see if how this was a fit. But my interest, I am Prophet Anyanwu Cox and serving different roles. I've been a mental health nurse for a very long time. I'm a clergy. But my biggest thing is that I'm a holistic practitioner and I'm interested in connecting with traditional medicine. And I guess the overall title would be health equity. I understand that across the globe, through some of my research and being in contact with a couple people on the continent of Africa, that there is a movement to elevate the whole, not just discussion, but it actually in some countries at one point it was almost illegal to do traditional medicine. So I'm very interested in connecting with the traditional healers, being a person of African descent in America, coming from a lineage of, in my family, of people who did holistic practices and herbs and that only from the standpoint that they didn't have a choice, right? Because my great-grandfather some years ago couldn't go to certain hospitals. So, but his knowledge of herbs allowed people from all ethnicities to come to him for treatment. So there are a group of us who feel like because of the whole my Alpha African Holocaust and being taken out of Africa, we were removed from the roots of our practices, which would have been indigenous, and at birth or early on, we would have been taken into special groups and societies and trained. So we're seeking now to reconnect with that sort of a different kind of a spiritual health reparations in a sense. And so we've talked to someone in Gambia and a couple other places, but I was wondering through this group, since you're doing such global work, if there were something going on that where we could connect not just with African healers, but I know that Native American, all over the world, indigenous people are using practices, and it's my understanding that 80% of people in many of these countries are still doing so. So we want to connect back. We've been removed away from the some of the cultural pieces of it, but many of us continue just through our own natural, spiritual, intuitive, whatever, to train and to learn and to do practices in our communities. So that's what my interest is. But I'm connected with a bunch of different organizations. I'm connected with the Friends of the African Union, with the African Diaspora Directive, with the National Council of the National Black Council of Elders. I'm part of a local, I'm an installed elder with on the national level and my local community, and on and on and on and on. But anyway, the bottom line is that I believe I'm called to be a healer, and that it's in my blood. I have visions and dreams about what to do with healing. I want to connect that with the root of culture on the continent, but also globally, because I know that the Indigenous people all over the world have some things in common when it comes to that kind of practice. That's it.
So I guess,
Well, if I may first, Lloyd, thank you so much for joining us. But so let me make it very clear, Prophet. Human responsibility number 29, or human right number 29, is responsibility. So I'd like to ask you to then undertake the responsibility for sharing with this group a presentation about what it is that is of value to you. But I'll turn it back over to Lloyd. Thank you.
and that's an absolutely fantastic idea to have Ms. Cox or Dr. Cox, if you are, if that is your designation, Prophet, I suppose.
Yeah, Prophet is it.
Do a presentation during one of these IGU summits in a future week. But the other thing I would like to actually ask you is if you might be willing to actually become one of the administrators for, we do have an existing Unity Health network. And then also ask you, we can connect after this call, if you want to connect as well to the Indigenous Unity Network as well, and the leaders there. So we can help to build that network as well through the communities of healers, Indigenous communities of healers. So we can build that network of healers through the health network, through the Indigenous Unity Network, and then we also have the Unity Culture Network that I can send you all of these links to join those networks, and we can have you hopefully as a leader of the or a co-leader of the Unity Health Network, so that we can really build that network as one of the strongest, hopefully, networks in our what I call network of networks.
Oh, that would be a great honor to be able to do that, because again, the vision is a global one. There are people across the globe who've had answers for a lot of the things we're struggling with right now. But it's my understanding in some countries, they actually had laws against practicing it because it seemed to them to tie to some sacrilegious, religious, blah, 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 blah. But so being able to have, but I heard the word recently, health equity. So that would be a theme I'd be coming with, rather, that we want health equity, like we want equity in every other area. We want the ability to choose, and that we have a basis for it, and there's more science coming out for it. So absolutely, I'd be honored to be a part of that. In terms of a presentation, I could do something. I guess my presentation would be more of the vision than actually what I do, because what I know, I've been to different countries, and not as many as I would like, but what I do know from my own practice, I saw one, I think from Zimbabwe, where they made, maybe I would show that video. They made it very clear that the traditional medicine, the reason why there was so much opposition during colonization is because they were concerned that it was anti-Christian, because it seemed to have a spiritual element. And I said, absolutely. My son, I could show you some horror, maybe I will do, because I have some pictures I took of my son's neck. He had 3 gaping wounds on his neck, and I tried everything I could that the doctors demanded. But it was through a vision that I was able to get what I needed to heal it. So I know that the traditional medicine has to have some type of a component to it, not religious, but spiritual, because George Washington Carver, who was a scientist, actually said he learned about the peanut and the sweet potato because they talked to him. So there is an intangible kind of thing, and those who into it know what I'm talking about, that goes with it without crossing lines where you have to get intolerant about religion. So I would love to, if you want me on there, if you have me, I would be more than happy to serve and support of that.
Yeah, so it's actually one of the big things we are trying to do, so that, for instance, the Indigenous Global Unity Network, originally created to connect the North American Indigenous communities with the African Indigenous communities through our crossroads of the Atlantic in Bermuda, now is expanding worldwide. So we would like to actually create an Indigenous Global Unity network connected, of course, to the entire global unity network, but the Indigenous network to connect all Indigenous communities around the world. To have these conversations and to learn from each other as well about all of these practices. I think it's really what I was thinking as well is around the concept of connecting with the earth, and I think that connection to Mother Nature is what you're probably talking about in terms of the dreams that we have, and I think connecting youth and children back to Mother Earth. We can learn probably so much more about healing ourselves, not just spiritually, but healing physically in many cases, and emotionally, and all of the various aspects of health that I think are ignored by our scientific modern medical system, mental health and other aspects that are just sort of we are at the beginning of recognizing the vital importance of these aspects of health that traditionally been ignored, I think, by our scientific medical practitioners who are mostly being taught like
so Lloyd,
as
perhaps
if they were robots.
Perhaps you could do a check of our guests.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we do have new people in, so maybe we could transition to it, giving everyone a 1 or 2 minute introduction and then move back to your presentation or the next presentation.
Professor Lloyd and Andrew, is it possible for me to just say something based on the previous introduction?
Of course, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you. Yeah, I don't miss this because it's very exciting. Firstly, I want to welcome our honored prophet and also doctor. And I also want to say the reason I'm getting excited is because in a country like South Africa, that is classified as a Christian country, yet is obviously predominantly African country. Professor Lloyd has mentioned that there's a lot of issues with psychosocial, and it's so important to link some of the holistic healing. When you use the word holistic healing, I thought that was great because this ties up to the holistic healing that we speak of. As much as in our interventions, in our programs and projects, we refer people to social workers, therapists, we find that that's never enough. There's always a missing angle. And a missing angle is not necessarily religious, but it is spiritual. And what is happening in a country like ours, Prophet, is that people tend to confuse spiritualism with ancestor worshipping. So I'm just excited that we might be able to present that. And then in the government, just the last point, the government has made allowance for traditional healers to be recognized and also for them to reposition themselves. So they are encouraging them to have nice shops, nicely painted in their shop, never to look like some ninja in a cave, but they're allowing them to have shops in the malls, nicely lit. So you can even contribute towards that, that conversation with the traditional healers. And I think to be exciting to have you as part of the diversity group, especially focusing on Africa and other countries. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please give me some phone numbers and some links. I won't take up any more time, but please connect me with that. And we do have healing circles that do mental health work under the Association of Black Psychologists. So we have licensed, credentialed, evidence-based healers as well. Thank you.
So one thing I wanted to mention as well is I'd like very much make sure that whatever we're talking about in terms of holistic healing also connects us to this whole concept of producing the what we call the climate smart, regenerative climate smart products. So then looking at our humanitarian entrepreneurs, the producers of herbs and medicinal herbs and other things from the forests, from the landscape that can also be these traditional medicines that are so often used, of course, by our traditional peoples. where we use
Lloyd,
the
if we
land
could continue,
resources.
if we could continue to allow the people here to introduce themselves and then get back to this. Thank you so much.
So does anybody else have any other comments on this subject or something else? Carlos,
Yes.
go ahead.
Hello. Yes, good evening from my side. My name is Carlos Richard Sanko. I'm the Continental President for UnityNet Africa and Diaspora. I'm really delighted based on the submissions of prophetess that the issue of traditional medicine is very important and we should pay attention to it. And I just want to, in our discussions yesterday strategically, we discussed about holistic wellness, which is very key onto our interventions as UnityNet Africa and Diaspora. It's also something that we should look at seriously because we noted that, and even so many African countries now have endorsed what we call the traditional medicine system in collaboration with the medical, the modern medical system, because they found out that there are certain diseases that the traditional healing system can do better than the modern system, the modern medical system. So I know countries like, for instance, in Sierra Leone, where I'm coming from, they have endorsed that we have two medical systems in Sierra Leone. You have the traditional medical system, doctors, and also we have the modern medical system doctors. And all of them normally, maybe on a monthly basis, they have meetings together to discuss, to look at the impact both sectors are making towards the healing process. And I know this is also viable in Ghana, in Nigeria, of course, in some other French countries I know. And so this is very, very important. So we welcome short intervention. And for us as UnityNet Africa, we are ready to collaborate with you and to ensure that you'll be able to reach and in all of our African countries to promote what you're doing together with us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for that as well. So this is part of the reason why we do have a continental network, this structure that we have where we want to bring together all of the local communities into our network, of course, but through channels that allow us to reach every country, every chapter eventually. So any additional comments or shall I continue with the presentation?
Yeah,
Stephanie.
Lloyd, it seems as though Joanna is on the call, but maybe under Patrick Noma's name. I think you made it in on my.
Yeah, no, Stephanie, what it is she has sent a message via Patrick's phone. Yes, through him to send an apology. So she's apologizing that her network has failed her. And she looks forward to another opportunity. So yeah, unfortunately, she hasn't been able to connect.
Of course.
Thanks, Stephanie. Unless Patrick wants to present.
Right. I just thought, okay, maybe there's something here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat as well myself. So
yeah. And Mr. Rusley Ewan also has his hand raised, just in case you don't see it, Professor Lloyd.
Yes. Okay, I'm seeing it now.
Yes. My name is Irwan Rusli in the United States. To Madam's Prophet, I would like, one of the suggestions I would like to do is, can we gather information about evidence-based medication, traditional African medication that really has been well known in ages to cure some illness, some disease, so that we can compile some kind of database. So this is I'm talking about the traditional medication that has been proven beyond any doubt that will heal some kind of disease or that needed medication, so that either one can produce in a very simple way from herb, for example, and maybe can distribute it to the people. So I just want to make sure, I think that would be a good idea, where a lot of this actual modern medicine actually derived from the old traditional medication. So I think this is something maybe we would like to, so I would like to suggest that in Africa, for example, it can, or maybe throughout the world, we can compile all the medication, traditional medication that has been proven, herb that has been proven for many, many years to heal some kind of disease and some ailment. Thank you. Just suggestion.
Okay. Yes, I would like to respond real quickly. Is it Brother Rusley?
Yes, Irwan Rusley. Yes.
You're in the United States, or where are you located? You're muted. You just got muted.
You muted yourself, Irwan.
I'm in Hackensack, New Jersey, actually, but I used to operate in Princeton area, but right now near New York City, actually, not 10 miles from New York City. But where are you located, Madam?
Are you indigenous here? I mean, were you born in the United States, or?
No, I'm originally from Indonesia.
Oh,
but
good. Okay, very good.
I used to work in the pharmaceutical company. So it's I'm trying to find out, like traditional medicine that being used in many developing countries, so that that we can, maybe you can compile some kind of list, so that maybe people can simplistic in simple way to produce this.
And the thing is that I'm glad that, because Indonesia vision, and I'm putting this out here because I'm looking forward to serving with the council, is to have a council of traditional medicine people from around the world. So Indonesia, of course, I know that in Indonesia, they would have to have at the indigenous level, because people, I mean, we've been on the planet for like how long, right? And so we know that we didn't just start finding ways to heal. Here's what I would say about that, just off the cuff, because I'm also a registered nurse. So I worked a bunch of years in the hospital and other health kind of systems. And so one of the things that people often ask is about, give us some absolute proof that these natural therapies work 100%, yet they don't require the same stringent guidelines for pharmaceuticals. And yet, if we look at the death rate and the killing of kidneys and livers and stuff from the side effects of some things, I don't know if you know that United States is 5% of the world population, but we consume 80% of the opioids on the planet. And so opioids kill kidneys and livers, but I do have some, there's research, but it's interesting. Keep that in mind, that some of these things, and so we'll just have a conversation about it, because I have books upon books around holistic therapies as well as healing, and the fact that the pharmaceutical industry is not, I don't even think it's 200 years old. So we know we're here, we know that we're thriving, and we have people throughout history who have lived. My grandmother was 107 when she passed, and her secret was stay off medicines. So her father was the herbalist. So we'll dive into it. I think it's a conversation for a council, like a professional council, like you're saying. But I have books upon books upon books. My family, my son was born with a compromised immune system and multiple disabilities, and they've wanted to cut into him several times. I have pictures of his neck wounds, and I tried everything the doctors say, because they pull your feet to the fire if you don't follow the conventional pharmaceutical route, but it just didn't heal. And after a year and a half, I had a vision, and in the vision, I was shown a herbal remedy, and within a couple months, it was closing up all 3 wounds. So, most of what you'll find with the natural, I think, is a lot of testimonies, because we have to look at maybe the health equity is getting some of the funding that it would take to bring the evidence base to, to publication, because in 2014, I think it is, one of the companies came under real harsh scrutiny from the FDA about not saying that, not telling your story. So some stories we're not even allowed to tell, publicly. I know this is recorded and it's actually on Facebook, so I probably shouldn't talk too much about it, but there's a lot of that. So there's a lot of politics involved, but there is a lot. I think I welcome your questions, because I like to have questions on both sides. It helps us to dig deeper and keep us on track with what you call evidence base. And when I mentioned to Sister Juliet about the evidence base, the African Association of African Psychologists, Black psychologists, have been working on that, because they discovered that based on the so-called true science, people of African descent were considered inferior mentally, emotionally, and physically. So the mental health arena, even though it was based on what's considered real science, was coming out with some bad outcomes. So now they brought in science evidence base. And so that's one place we'll also have it, but we're talking about mind, body, and spirit. And so, yeah, there's enough out there. And in fact, the proof is in the pudding. 80% of the world uses traditional medicine. So working or not, they have some concerns about the levels of like renal failure and different things that are going on. Even, well, we want to talk about the pandemic, but yes, I think that would be great. But again, I'm putting out a council of traditional healers globally, because these people who have been on the planet for millions of years, they're coming from generations of passing on some type of oral traditions and sharing secret information around healing and that kind of thing. And they've been treating communities for, for many, many years. So if we can do that, I'm just throwing that out, a global council of traditional healers. Thank you.
That would be great.
Again, we can establish this council, for instance, through our Indigenous Global Unity Network, as well as partnering with the Health Network, so we can bring all of these conversations to the forefront and get these professionals, even the professional traditional healers as well. So, are there any other comments?
Lloyd, if it is okay, I would like to mention about the model project for the poor and poverty alleviation, as well as community well-being. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned in my email, that we are looking for poor area. We are looking for rural, underdeveloped, underserved communities, remote communities that are poor, and areas that are also poor. So I've been getting some response from Tanzania, from South Africa, and also I'm waiting from Canada, Indigenous Canadian, and also some other countries. But I'm still waiting other countries to provide me some proposal for the location or potential area. At least one. I would think that every country in Africa can be representative, can be represented, because it's dealing with individual manager. So we're talking about manager in that country, one project as a model project, that would be fine. So, and as I say, is more likely behind the scene here. The manager are the one who would be involved closely. So my involvement is very limited. I'm probably going to be just guiding, maybe make sure everything being checked, being evaluated, make sure everything done transparency. That's all of my involvement. And then we can put together the result. We can put together, look at some of the problems that might be involved. So this is all for African, for any other Asian country as well. Bangladesh, Nepal, we're looking from Nepal, Ganga, and see what we can do. So it's not only Africa, everybody. And again, I'm hoping maybe at least one project from one country at least, maybe a little bit more, just for model right now. And as we go proceed, and if the model working, then we can apply for similar similar area, similar village. So this is practically one village at a time. So give me some suggestion. We have been getting, and this is flexible program. So I'm not talking about the whole program we're going to put, eliminate poverty quickly. It's probably we have to dealing with education. They have to dealing with food, maybe enterprise. Let's put together all these things, and maybe from this many different variety of problem, we can put it some kind of comprehensive program, which I already proposed strategy dealing with first transparency. So the whole project has to be transparent. We're trying to prevent corruption. We're trying to detect early corruption. We're trying to make sure everything transparent, the budget, the spending, everything transparent, so that we also will identify the stakeholder, whether this is the community, the people, individual family, they all are stakeholders. They need to know this, the funding provider will also a stakeholder. I will be stakeholder. The manager is stakeholder. There will be responsibility. There have to be some accountability. So all these things is, I think, unique program approaching as far as approaching the project. So let's get together, and the fact that we all can see each other project, we can learn from each other. We can have a lesson learned, and then we can improve as we go along. So this is hopefully will be a lot of participation. So I'm not excluding anybody as far as a developing country, again, poor and remote area, remote village, poor, so that we can improve, we can see the progress as we reduce the poverty. So I'm not excluding any country, just let's put together one model project or two from each country, and then have one manager from each country, and let's do it right. And so again, one more thing, send me a potential proposal, and then we can put together. Because I have, as I mentioned, the whole thing strategy consists of, again, transparency, and then empowerment, whether it is through information, computer, communication technology, empowerment for education, for health. We're trying to do telehealth, for example, telemedicine, maybe including the traditional medicine from Madam Prophet. And then we can have technology to improve the agriculture. How can we make even fruit grow more, for example? What kind of fertilizer is the most optimum for a certain agricultural operation? And then we have to have enterprise, entrepreneurship has to be there, because we need to have to improve the economy of the village. So we have to deal maybe how we market the product, how we can obtain an order, for example, either through ICT or anything. And then for those who are marginalized, people who cannot work, people who cannot work at all, then maybe we need to assist in certain way, maybe just social assistance. So for all the people, for younger children, let them have a variety of empowerment so that we can have the whole holistic approach in eliminating this poverty. It makes everybody is village, community well-being, and so on. So let's have this program. I'm hoping maybe toward the end of the month, we have some idea about how many people will be participate. And then again, the funding, we have to look for funding. So, but the fact that this program should be powerful, I think it will be of interest to World Bank, to some USAID, some other big agency for funding this project, because it is unique. It is a strong project, in my opinion, a strong program for alleviating poverty. So let's do, I would suggest that let's do this in the right way. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. What I wanted to just mention was that we are hoping to have you on as a guest speaker during these IGU summits as well. We can probably see if we can have a special discussion specifically inviting every one of the members of our network to contribute their ideas, their like you say, to identify these local communities, these remote communities in their own regions, countries around the world. So we'll move ahead both with your own presentation as well as I think we can have a special event just for
yes, Lloyd, I'm ready. And
discussions.
just one thing to mention, if we have this combined effort, can we imagine if we apply to USAID, World Bank, how can they refuse us? We need to know why they refuse us. This is a need right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna pass it over to Andrew. I see his hands up.
Well, thank you so very much. Also, just as a housekeeping note, we have had new people to join us, some that we haven't had before. But I do want to let you know that Joseph Akinola has joined us as well. He's made a commitment to work through the Andrew Networks and the AHIABGA-TV to help each of us develop our own presentation of our own individual profiles and our own organizations so that we can begin to actually quantify who we are here and what talent, skills, and abilities that are already at the table. However, my commitment to this forum is to provide a platform for us to all become citizen journalists as well as participants, meaning that each of us has to take the responsibility, which is human right number 29, to be the ones to be the solutions we want to see. So Lloyd, in that regard, in the chat, I put in the 10 principles of the United Nations Global Compact. They deal, Erwin, with human rights, the environment, labor, and the last part is anti-corruption and transparency. As we're now faced with looming war on one hand, ongoing climate change on the other hand, ongoing pandemic on the other hand, ensuing hunger on the other hand, I think, Erwin, it's important that we take a look at what's already going on the geopolitical stage. There's already a strategy from 2021 to 2023 for us to do what we're doing now, but not just amongst ourselves on a global stage. So perhaps, Lloyd, I'll take the opportunity to make a presentation on that upcoming, but I do want to give those new people here an opportunity to introduce themselves. Thank you.
So I've made note of that additional presentation that you'd like to do, Andrew. Just let me know when you want that to happen. And we'll shuffle around our schedule to make it happen when you would like that. And Erwan, get in touch with me so we can book you as well.
Yes, yes, Lloyd, I'm ready. So anytime you just let me know what date I will be there.
Yeah. So after this, just get in contact with me directly via WhatsApp, and we'll nail down that date for you. Did we have any other comments before we move on? Does anybody want to introduce themselves? They're new.
Well, Dr. Nikki has noted in the chat that she's here. So Dr. Nikki, do you have an opportunity to introduce yourself?
Hello.
Hello, Nikki.
Yeah, hello everybody. Sorry, I'm trying to do 3 things at one time. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I just want to share that Lloyd attended a meeting with our board in this past week, and everybody was really excited about the collaboration and the projects that are possible, because our focus is really on collaboration this year. And thank you so much for your share just now, where you said that we need to link hands together, because that is the only thing that's going to help us and make things work. So thank you so much. Global Peace-led Talk is exactly this. It's about collaborations, bringing people together with the same vision. so that we can create a world that is at peace, and that where there is conflict, that we're able to offer support and help to find solutions through different projects that we do. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Nikki. Make sure you put your contact information in the chat as well for those new people that want to reach you. Thank you so much. Back to you, Lloyd.
So actually, I'm hoping that I can continue my presentation because the new slides actually have a lot to do with the conversation I had with Nikki. So because so I'm guessing that if we can finish, if I can spend some extra time and finish that
Please do. Go right ahead.
presentation, then hopefully we can go through that, and Nikki will then be aware.
Please do. Go right ahead.
Yep, I'm just in the process. Where was I? So okay, I already did this, but okay. So what I wanted to mention was that the Global Unity Network is inclusive of everyone's networks insofar as we agree to uplift and promote each other's good work. We do three main things. Right page. We do help people in local communities create these local INAP collaboratives through the AHIABGA process of localization of global goals. We help to facilitate the localized delivery of the regenerative economy learning programs that others have developed, which are done through the Unity Learning Network for and by the members of the INAP collaboratives worldwide. We promote everyone's who is willing to work together in solidarity toward the practical and necessary achievement of the global goals. The Global Unity Network is what we call network of networks, inclusive of everyone's networks, but they should agree to uplift and promote each other and each other's good work and not place themselves at the center of the activities. So the collaborative events that we'd like to do in 2022 are related to the activities of the Global Unity 4K Club Network, the Unity Gardens Network, and the Eco Village Network, along with the Biodiversity Network. So the first one being the Global Coordinated Abraham Project, Trio Peace and Reconciliation Showcase for global cooperation delivered locally in multiple local communities with the members of the Global Unity Network on World Environment Day, Sunday, June 5th, 2022, which allow us to begin establishing the global network of local INABCs, Interfaith Neighborhood Academic and Business Collaboratives, that will lead the way at the local level everywhere in the world to undertaking the various globally coordinated events that we plan to do during the rest of the year. So again, we open up the chat here. So the important launch event will be followed by the Bubble Fun Festivals, globally coordinated events designed to allow youth and families to have fun while they learn about the properties of bubbles, how to use bubbles to potentially allow humanity to more easily adapt and thrive in a warming and changing global climate, especially in areas of the world that are where the impacts of global warming and climate change will be felt most severely, including here in Canada, especially in the north, as well as in mountainous areas and in places like sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. So possible dates for these global coordinated community bubble fun festivals between August 9th, International Day of World Indigenous Peoples, also the International Day of Solidarity with the Struggle of Women in South Africa and Namibia, or National Women's Day, August 12th, International Youth Day, and August 19th, World Humanitarian Day. So those that stretch of dates between August 9th and 19th to have local bubble fun festivals, any date between those, so it's an 11-day window. Again, I will put in some links in the chat for those observances. The Ubuntu Summit, one other key event that takes place on Global Cooperation Day, October 4th, through to World Food Day, October 16th. So Ubuntu Summit, October 4th. We did one last year. This is also called Feast Day of St. Francis of Assisi and Blessing the Animals Day, both celebrated by the Catholic faith communities. So I will put in the Ubuntu Summit event that we did last year, 2021, a link. As well, we have a globally coordinated climate smart youth forum I mentioned earlier, designed to allow youth and families from around the world to learn about and discuss the various regenerative climate smart agriculture and food growing solutions that support achieving SDG 2, zero hunger, and local circular regenerative economies, along with learning more about climate smart food program and components of the ad hoc International Advisory Board Goodwill Ambassador process of globalization of the global goals, and the smart virtual infrastructure, the Unity Gardens and Interchange for Peace that allow local community INABCs to gain access to all of the learning programs, the information, education, training, along with support programs, the financial support programs inclusive, that we are promoting through the Global Unity Network, so that we will hopefully in turn allow local community members and families to implement these local regenerative climate smart humanitarian infrastructure and enterprise solutions in the context of their own neighborhoods and communities, wherever they might live. With the primary host of the Global Unity or Global Climate Smart Youth Forum this year intended to be Yali International in Nigeria, working in partnership with UnityNet Nigeria and UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, as well as the rest of the members of Global Unity Network, as many as possible who can contribute to the Yali International Youth Education and Leadership Initiative, managed by Dr. Monday Amadou from UnityNet Nigeria. I put in the chat, again, more links, especially to the Unity Children and Youth International Network for people to join. I wanted to mention as well the Global Coordinated Community Tree Planting event designed to establish the 3D polyculture food forests in local communities around the world, done in all the communities of the Global Unity Network, INAB Collaborative, wherever an INAB Collaborative has been established, where the members of the local community partnership can help to establish these victory forest community gardens designed for delivering the global Unity learning programs in partnership with organizations like Tuktana EV, their Women Empowerment Program, the Global Unity 4K Club, Humanitarian Entrepreneurship Learning Program for educating and training women, youth, and other community members about the ways of achieving food and nutrition security and health security now under the lens of SDG 2, zero hunger, at the local level, while we also implement many other global goals like climate action, SDG 13, biodiversity action, SDG 15, which is life on land, gender equality action, SDG 5, clean water action, SDG 6, clean energy action, SDG 7, peace actions, SDG 16, no poverty actions, SDG 1, through the local community enterprises that also aim to leave no one behind. With the last Global Unity Coordinated Community Victory Forest Unity Garden Tree Planting event would be done during the proposed Climate Smart Youth Forum Week, which will likely also include a hybrid and in-person virtual conference event. So again, some of our networks, again, linked here. I'm coming back to this slide. I kept it in our presentation deck here because I wanted to also notify everyone that although the Global Unity Network had been offered to organize a side event during the 2022 Together Ensemble National Conference on the SDGs in Canada for March 4th, next week, I wish to announce that John Beale from the University of Waterloo and SDSN Canada told us on Tuesday that he's unable to accommodate any more side events. So the March 4th SDSN Canada side event is not going ahead, but instead we will now regroup. We'll find another date to do our tea diplomacy event with Global Peace Let's Talk. But since John did also indicate that he can accommodate us next year during the 2023 SDSN side event for Canada, his exact words being, we can collaborate on this for future years, multiple. So we are most definitely on their radar. So this delay actually, I think, will give us some additional time, breathing room to really make our first tea diplomacy initiative event something really impactful. I wanted to note that the SDSN event was not actually on our Global Unity calendar in the first place. This first major event of the year was supposed to be the Abraham Project for World Environment Day on June 5th. But I thought I would give this a try anyways to see if we could do this. But I would, as I mentioned, I'd like to regroup, bring together all of our global teams into a new proposal. Again, before I move on, put in the original links to the SDSN Canada network, University of Waterloo. But this next slide indicates that I would like to establish what we call the Commonwealth G20 Partnership for Regenerative Development, so that we can bring at least 3 continents together into this conversation. So the tea diplomacy event isn't canceled, but will only be postponed, perhaps unfortunately, but not done during the SDSN Canada event this year, this Together Ensemble event, but we still may be able to do it on our own, perhaps even with their participation. And some of the members of the SDSN Canada network can be invited to our event, hopefully together with various members of UN Global Compact Canada as well. So if we can invite and hopefully get various management, CEOs, board members of these 2 organizations, these corporations and organizations who are members of the UN Global Compact Canada, to participate in this tea diplomacy event discussions, along with the university management and researchers and academics who are affiliated with the SDSN Canada network. We can transform this apparent setback, hopefully, into something that may be even better than what we could have done in only a little over a week's time with the SDSN Canada event alone. So what I have suggested just yesterday is that we might wish to consider doing a multi-day tea diplomacy initiative event during the week of solidarity with the people struggling against racism and racial discrimination, which actually happens from March 21st to 27th. But with a special day on Monday, March 21st, 2022, which is actually the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, but also happens to be World Poetry Day, and also is the International Day of Forests. So March 21st, rather important day potentially. This opens up the possibility for us to plan a virtual tea diplomacy event on that day, in addition to the standard fare that I described earlier, where the very first tea diplomacy initiative event, virtual discussions, would take place between these high-level SDSN Canada and UNGC Canada members, including the leaders and high-level decision makers, and some of our Global Unity Network members at the grassroots who are living in and doing work with these various marginalized communities around the world. So the addition would be to have this multi-day event encompassing having conversations also related to methods and processes for eliminating or enabling and implementing solidarity with the people struggling against racism and racial discrimination. Also having discussions with some of the local poets and poetry that have influenced local cultures in each respective community, wherever participants in these virtual discussions might live, and as well discussing the importance of establishing productive forests as biodiverse 3D polyculture food forests established as Victory Forest Unity Gardens in all of our local communities, managed in partnership with local Indigenous peoples and all levels of government in every local community and country as sort of essential part of a process of what we call practical reconciliation with all of the Indigenous peoples of the world, one country, one community, and one watershed at a time. So again, in the chat, I am putting links to the 3 international events, the Week of Solidarity, the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, World Poetry Day, and the International Day of Forests. So I'm hoping that this can be a follow-up discussion that I will have with Nikki and her team, as well as other members of the Bubble Fun Festival groups, as well as some of the folks that are part of course, the Tea Diplomacy Initiative, which is this event. So the other thing I wanted to mention, there is a WhatsApp discussion group that we had created for the SDSN network on March 4th, can now be repurposed so that we can begin planning for 2023. We can, of course, continue our focus discussions there related to the proposed announcement about the launch of what we called a Bubble Soccer League to create some related fun competitions that kids of all ages can engage in, and eventually the Bubble Fun sports events intended to be done in all the local communities in the Global Unity Network in order to engage the local families in our conversations. So I'd like to involve the leaders and members of at least these 4 primary chat groups that are shown here, the Unity Children and Youth Network, the Tea Diplomacy Initiative, the UnityNet Culture and Diversity Network, the Unity Women and Feminists Network, and any others who may wish to join in establishing this International Bubble Soccer League, and in the future a Bubble Sports League, where the ultimate goal is the establishment of the global Bubble Fun Games, starting with the first fun and accessible Bubble Fun soccer event for children and families, organized for and with the underprivileged and marginalized communities, especially with young people of all ages, along with those who are young at heart. So the Bubble Fun Games would be organized by a Bubble Fun Games committee, would be designed to encourage positive and present fatherhood, and to teach people about the miracle of bubbles, to help achieve greater food and water security, to have fun, ensure that we leave no child and no family behind. So I wanted also to note that UnityNet Malawi is also quite important for us for a few reasons. Also because Malawi is actually a member of the Commonwealth. Of course, I'm the Goodwill Ambassador for the Commonwealth of Nations. Malawi is considered an LDC by the World Bank rankings in alignment with our concept of LNOB. Malawi is one of the most food insecure countries, according to UN Dispatch rankings from 2019, of course, but Malawi is also a country that loves the game of soccer. So we do plan to eventually launch a Bubble Fun Soccer event and league as part of the various pilot projects that we wish to do. So this will involve bringing together the Children and Youth Network and Bubble Fun Network members to collaborate in particular. So again, for the chat, I'm putting in these networks that you can see on the screen, so people, if they wish to join. So the other concept that came up just recently, we would still like to possibly announce the establishment of this Commonwealth G20 Partnership for Regenerative Development, which would be a partnership between UnityNet Canada, UnityNet India, and now also UnityNet South Africa, at least, who are all G20 members, but also members of the Commonwealth. So in future, we may also be able to establish UnityNet UK and perhaps UnityNet Australia as well, other 2 G20 members who are members of the Commonwealth, have them join this partnership as well. But anybody who is interested can now join in the discussion as it relates to the participation of the Global Unity Network SDSN 2023 events, especially as it relates to the Tea Diplomacy Initiative and these other discussions. But what we would like to eventually announce this larger global network, which we're hoping that we'll be able to bring forth, especially during next year's SDSN Canada event. So finally, as I had indicated during past IGU summits, overarching plan for global cooperation that we are implementing here. We are working together with all the marginalized people of the world, co-creating with members of the Global Unity Network, attempting to implement with the leaders of the Global Unity Network of networks, cooperating with these local members who are most impacted by the solutions that are being offered as possibilities for the development of the local humanitarian enterprises related to our original CTP program. I did want to mention again the original collaborative tree planting program, the Twinning of Communities program, created with the goal of doubling Canada's commitment to planting forests, private sector initiative, trees planted on private property in communities. We wanted to plant in Canada and across other LDCs. The collaborative tree planting program originally developed by Drawdown Markham, plus a group in Prince Edward County in East Central Ontario. We called it a regenerative climate smart community infrastructure development program with a tree planting component. The tree planting at the time, the community forests that resulted from that planting was not actually the central program outcome, but it related to the establishment and delivery of the local regenerative climate community infrastructure that was used to deliver solutions for achieving the global goals, the SDGs at the local community level. But the CTP program is about regenerative climate smart community humanitarian entrepreneurship learning program, education and training delivery systems that are accessible to the local level people in each and every community that takes part in the CTP programs, done either as twinning or training or co-training of local community INABCs. So I note again, the original CTP program presented to my member of parliament here in Richmond Hill, the first federal candidate of Iranian heritage. We actually have a UnityNet Iran at this moment as well. And I'm connecting to a researcher at the University of Waterloo, who is from Iran, and having conversations with him right now with regards to a project that we would like to showcase out in British Columbia, where we do subsequently want to propose projects hopefully soon, before we move forward too far, also here in Canada, but in partnership. I'm going to be moving forward, probably starting even later today, to begin establishing some local INABC collaborative groups, discussions for Markham, for Mississauga, for Toronto, possibly also in Calgary, possibly also in Richmond Hill, perhaps with Stephanie as well in Vaughan. Let's start establishing some local teams so we can begin to twin what we're doing in Africa with what we're doing in Canada. So let's restart these conversations around the establishment of the INAB collaboratives. We can do this, especially again through the Unity Women and Feminists Network, along with the CTP program networks. So again, talking about the reverse CTP, the Global Unity Network originally created to support this collaborative tree planting program, reimagined now as reverse CTP to support the establishment of the global network of productive eco-villages populated by our humanitarian entrepreneurs. So the reverse CTP program has the theme from Africa to the world, where the first major initiative will be related to the planting of the trees as productive 3D polyculture food forests in and around local communities across Africa, in partnership with these other communities around the world. So the hope is that this new reverse CTP program can become Africa's contribution, especially to the global pledge to end deforestation by 2030, which was the first headline agreement from COP26, where the EU had proposed a law as well that would prevent importing commodities linked to deforestation activities, which means there's likely going to be a significant push to end deforestation. Not just that, but to replant forests where they've been previously destroyed or degraded. We're looking now beyond the Sustainable Development Goals as well, to post-2030, plant a tree today and it won't be a forest for, in some cases, several decades. So we're looking at post-2030 period, when humanity will be needing to put even more effort, especially into restoring a relationship and balance with nature, undertaking rather massive ecosystem restoration activities if we're going to survive climate change and ecosystem degradation, especially biodiversity loss that's ongoing. So the goal is to establish some physical and virtual infrastructure to allow people in every local community on Earth to learn how to implement some of these local solutions themselves with the rationale for our hybrid approach, which we're promoting as what we call open source solutions, constrained or not constrained by patents or other IT limitations. So again, I'm putting the Unity Eco Village network into the chat. I want to mention again, reiterate, Unity Network focuses on the smaller scale, community-based and regenerative solutions that can be implemented by local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs in all of our local communities, including in the rural areas, as well as in the cities, and where the programs of the Global Unity Network are also focused on community engagement, both initial and ongoing, through the delivery of the events that focus on the development of the local partnerships to establish and maintain the local INABCs for the purpose of bringing not just the top regenerative practitioners onto the virtual platform to teach people about establishing the regenerative infrastructure as local community social purpose enterprises. We also help to empower the smallholders, the marginalized citizens who are members of our networks to establish their local humanitarian enterprises in their local communities, provide them with access to this Interchange for Peace virtual collaborative network, supporting, assisting, promoting, and empowering them in all the local communities to work together with their own local community members, as well as all the members of the Global Unity Network, to plan to the best of their ability for the establishment of these hands-on regenerative classrooms, the productive regenerative Unity Garden enterprises that will allow for this delivery of the learning programs, the education and training of the open source solutions to all other local community members, to be done in partnership with all the other local community organizations, including existing educational institutions, so that everybody can eventually take advantage of this Interchange for Peace virtual digital network, serving as a support for their enterprises, as well as the delivery of the humanitarian entrepreneurship learning programs to even more youth, more educators, more decision makers in their local community, so that everyone in the local community knows about and will support the people who are operating these regenerative development solutions for achieving zero hunger and climate action, at least, especially for those who are most marginalized in each of our communities. So I wanted to mention one final time, the local team here in Toronto is establishing the Greater Toronto Area Unity Network, UnityNet GTA, I mentioned, made up of several INABCs through this partnership developed through Energize Global Corporation Turtle Island, International Civil Society Organization. working with our allies in the Global Unity Network, including the Africa and Diaspora Network, the rest of the UnityNet Canada local INABCs, in order to establish and expand the Indigenous Global Unity Network that delivers the programs for this practical reconciliation with Indigenous communities and their allies across Turtle Island and around the world for the purpose of healing our planet, restoring biodiversity, ensuring global social integrity, one community at a time. So looking through the lens of implementing solutions for achieving the global goals locally, starting with the local implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially during this UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which does take place, started last year, 2021, goes until 2030 in alignment with the SDGs, planning to start with the implementation and the development of this Greater Toronto Area Canadian Urban Food and Farming Expo Network, which we are also hoping to launch probably later in this year or even next year, but we'll focus on the development of local regenerative climate smart food supply chain ecosystems here in the GTA, establishing virtual urban farming network, local smart and fair trade products certified as regenerative climate smart, which can help to tackle zero hunger, climate action, SDG 2 and 13, one meal at a time, where the intention is also to leave no one behind, where we teach others how to implement these new regenerative economy solutions, not only, of course, to others here in Canada, but also to people around the world in partnership through these partnerships that we are developing as per SDG 17. So I again put into the chat information about this urban farming digital hub network, which exists, but we will put an emphasis on it once we are able to come together on the virtual collaborative network. So throughout my presentation, I did talk about Unity Gardens, our ad hoc international advisory board process of localization of the global goals. But I want everybody to understand that none of what we are proposing has ever been done before. So we're breaking new ground with these networks and community engagement concepts and programs. One thing that participants in our network needs to remember is this is a private network that is being developed by the Global Unity Business Group in support of all the global members of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board, where the business group is simply managing the global network on behalf of all the global members of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. Some of our members may have heard that there's talk about this preliminary pilot project possibly to be executed. Of course, we talked about it earlier with Erwan. In some of the African countries, there is a proposal to do these pilot projects managed by a member of our network, not the Global Unity Business Group or the Global Unity Network itself, but this is a third-party organization. The Erwin Rusley Institute. The good thing is that this third-party organization, Rusley, proposed the pilot projects to help learn more about our process of community engagement and localization. Will allow us to learn more about the various costs, the obstacles, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, SWOT analysis, some of the possible threats that may make these proposed Unity Gardens redundant, superfluous, or otherwise unnecessary. We don't believe that this will be the case, but the pilot project should tell us a lot about the actual viability, both the infrastructure as well as the cultural solutions that we've been promoting, where the pilot projects, if done under a variety of different scenarios in different countries in both the developed and the developing world, will allow us to gather a lot of information that will be extremely valuable as we move forward with projects across Africa and beyond Africa as well, because it must also be remembered that we are an entry point. Our entry point is Africa, but the solutions are intended not only for Africa, but for all of the billions of marginalized people around the world. So the first pilot projects, that proposal that was made some weeks ago was to do what I had called at the time a 3-and-3-on-3 project, essentially doing pilot projects in 3 communities on 3 countries and 3 continents, one of which is Africa. Because the pilot project that was proposed is not being managed by the Global Unity Network itself, nor the UnityNet Africa or Diaspora, which has a different role. We need to continue building this network across Africa, even as the pilot projects continue, since in the end, we will also benefit from the other pilot projects if the Unity Network stays intact, and will eventually achieve some success with the pilot projects. One thing that I'd like to clarify is that the role of the Global Unity Network, including UnityNet African Diaspora, I explained this to our continental president. The continental networks are being created to help establish the country chapters, which really help to establish those local INABCs, because this will become a network of local INABCs. So UnityNet African Diaspora is not intended to be a project management organization, or at least not initially, except for managing the various events that are used to promote the local activities of our members. So the pilot projects are being established in partnership with the members of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, with the help and support of the Global Unity Business Group on behalf of the members of the network, where once we can prove successful, we do intend to roll them out, of course, across all of Africa, also for a large number of poor and marginalized people in local communities around the world, including here in North America, especially in various communities in both urban and rural, in Asia, and beyond. So the members of the UnityNet African Diaspora need to know this is not an African initiative. It is a global project being done in support of local Indigenous communities, part of this process of re-indigenization of our existing colonial systems of community and economy, where we need to get people closer to the land, out of some of the unsustainable systems of modern life, in support of the local Indigenous communities, including the 3,000 Indigenous communities on the continent of Africa. But good reason we call these particular events Indigenous Unity Summit events, since one of our primary goals is to build this global Indigenous Unity Network and bring together all of the Indigenous and re-Indigenized people of the earth in solidarity, partnership for hopefully a regenerative future. So I wanted to put in some additional information and links into the chat. One is linked with these new links that have probably not been seen by others.
I just wanted to interrupt if I could, Lloyd, because I have to get off the call, but my name is Stephanie Schuler and I actually live near Lloyd, a nice walk in Toronto, Canada. And I'm in my final year of my doctoral studies at the University of Toronto, OISE, the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And I'm so grateful that Prophetess brought up holistic medicines and holistic wisdoms. And I'm glad so much that Juliet and other people, Carlos, other people responded to that. My particular research has to do with children thriving and being labeled in the young schoolhood years, in any of the school years being labeled. And I see so many of the children after they're labeled like with learning disabilities or whatnot, not excluded and made to feel different, that oftentimes their social emotional well-being oftentimes plummets. And I know that the world is having a youth mental health crisis. And I know in particular, Canada can boast one of top 5 countries in the world with highest youth suicide rates. And I know that the world is baffled about the wellness of the youth in particular, and our communities in general now, and especially during and after COVID. And nothing really is seeming to improve that. And that's something that I often talk about in addition to my work with Lloyd and Andrew and the Global Unity Network, and regarding food security and the Maui Aloha Project and Eco Village Initiative that I'm a co-founder of. But of utmost importance is the social emotional well-being, the well-being in general of the youth and the children and the communities. And I'm grateful that this has coming into our peripheries more often and being offered as being an opportunity for us to learn, because at this point, all avenues should be explored, all avenues of medicine and all wisdoms that we know that are old and new for the well-being of the youth. So I just wanted to really touch on that, and I'm grateful that that is now part of the Global Unity Network, and we can really learn from all of our ancient wisdoms, all of our cultural wisdoms towards the wellness, physical, nutritional, but also, you know, the mental and psychological well-being. And so I just wanted to mention that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much for continuing to support us through the Learning Network. So Stephanie is the founder or co-founder of the Unity Learning Network. And that's a central tenet, and you'll see it in our logo, of course, of the Global Unity Network. The Learning Network is the essential first and key component of what we are doing here. What we intend to build. So one of our main purposes, of course, is to build the infrastructure that allows us to deliver these learning programs, whatever the people need to understand and know in the context of both the digital virtual learning, but in the physical environments where people can get in touch with nature directly. So Juliet, you wanted to say a few words?
Yeah, just a word, Juliet from South Africa here. Stephanie, I know that we've been in a few discussions together, and I also echo your sentiments. And I think our prophetess can know that we are all on the same page. It doesn't matter which part of the globe or the world we are. So we're going to work on this together. And I wanted to give an example of something that I shared. I don't know if Stephanie picked up, of a case yesterday of 8-year-old that was raped in one of the communities on her way to school. We've had a few discussions on the side about this. And the reason I'm linking it to you, Stephanie, is because as much as it's an incident that has affected one, or not one, actually, several children, because others are also coming out that this has happened, and we're talking 8-year-olds up to 10-year-olds, that has had an impact on the community. You can, as much as we do other activities, but you can pick up that there's a sense of discomfort because we've made sure that things like this don't happen. We've worked on various projects to keep ourselves together. So what we are mentioning here and what the prophetess is mentioning, those things become important in terms of when communities face things like this, how do they move forward? You know, then virtually using ICT, using video, we can have people like Stephanie and the prophetess talking on a big screen in the gardens or at the parks, talking to communities, just to get people to say, we need to find a way of moving forward. And obviously we're talking about it on a small scale, but there are also all these other micro issues, as someone calls Africa as we've had an African Holocaust, but that's on another level. But on an immediate level, we can look at small projects like those to help people move forward after an immediate trauma. Thank you.
So I guess I'm looking at it's about 1:30, 1:28 now. I'm glad. I think I'm almost at the end of my presentation. I don't probably need to go through the rest of it. I think some people.
Can I share one other thing, please?
This, so I'm not going to continue my presentation today, but we'll continue discussing. But it's up to Andrew whether he wants to continue.
Can I share one quick thing?
Yes, go ahead, Prophet.
Yeah, this is, thank you. And it does profit everyone. The ESS is, I don't use, it's sort of a gender neutral gift is the way I look at it. But the, what Sister Juliet said, there, this mind, body, and spirit. So on the, let's go with the mind and emotional part. The Association of Black Psychologists has put together culturally specific, and they're open to adapting that to different ethnic and cultural groups because it has a particular model. But with the Haitian crisis that we just had, we did do some, and we had to adapt it even for Haitian, even though they were still of African descent, they had to be adapted because the culture was slightly different. And so we did immediately. So we've had what we call Sawubona healing circles. Sawubona is a word that you probably know that means I see you, we see you. It's like Ubuntu in some ways, but because it's based on a principle. So we do these healing circles, but anytime there's a crisis, when there was the trial for the policeman that killed George Floyd, that was a crisis. So there was a week-long healing circles. For the Haitian crisis, there was a week-long. So that's on the what is it, the micro, which one is the micro? But anyway, it's on the grassroots level. Also, along with what you all have been talking about, is putting together infrastructure, like Ms. Schuler is saying, on an international level, so that it's not whether she or I, and I'm sure she's very gifted. I know, I'm gifted. All of us, I think, are gifted in different ways when it comes to healing, but to be able to pull together and be able to work together around the globe on the different healing strategies. Sometimes we may be able to learn from each other, may be able to help the tradition come back up so that it's considered credentials. In the Western world, there's a certain thing where you have to have papers. So I got a stack of papers that may mean nothing to some people. I've got a stack of them, you could choke on them. But I think being able to put a structure together so we can benefit from each other's practices. So I do holistic. Someone told me I'm more of a shaman because some of my best work comes directly. Now, Lloyd, you said from Mother Earth, I said from the universe, because all of them doesn't come from Earth. Some come straight out of the invisible realm. So it's kind of, not to get spooky on you, but there are things that George Washington Carver talked to the plants. Harriet Tubman had a vision. That's how she got from the south to the north without being caught and not losing any people. So it is a broad scope. It requires multiple skills, but people across the globe have tapped into it for millions of years at different levels. And I'm saying in this hour and this time, let's pull together a structure that we can bring those who know together, right? Bring those who know together. I do some Eastern work, around different things that I've learned because that's what was available to me in America. But there are things that we can help the National Institute of Health to recognize that they've even done research on prayer and meditation. So there's some work already done. If we bring this together, organized, we'll have a better opportunity of more Western thinkers accepting it. But even if they don't, 80% of the people on the planet are using it. So I wanted to say, yes, we do have a way to help communities and to help immediate causes, and we can do both.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so our mandate is essentially to try to establish this infrastructure, as you say, like using the existing digital tools that are out there, but then building these local community support networks. Essentially, the idea being that we need to establish these each of these unity gardens in every local community as an enterprise, as a productive enterprise that engages with the community, but is connected to this basically a global network of local community learning centers, these unity gardens.
Yes, and do some training of trainers. Because I get, I've done Sawubona healing circles, but also trained people to do their own. People in different parts of the world know their own culture. Once they get the basic model and template, they can help their own communities, so that would reach further than 2 or 3 of us trying to do a healing circle.
And maybe there's openings for global healing circles to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Through
that would be
network.
Marvelous. Yes, marvelous.
So are there any other comments or introductions? Anybody else that you have not heard from today that would like to say a few words? If not, suppose that we can probably end the call today. We've been on the line for a little over 2.5 hours now.
Hello, Lloyd.
Oh, yes. How are you doing? Go
Fine
ahead.
yourself. You know, the reality that we are sitting with in South Africa, we love to use the word potjiekos. Juliet can tell you guys what is potjiekos. And you know, it's all the ingredients that make up the whole product at the end of the day. So, you know, what we are looking at here is integration of the different programs on community level. You know, the same community can be responsible for the medicinal plants. You know, the same community is responsible for the tree planting project, integrating that with the agricultural projects. The one thing that we should do for the communities, though, is to protect the intellectual property. You know, I think one of the things that have happened too often in Africa is that other people walk away with the spoils. And we can quote very lists of projects like that, especially in the biosphere. So I think that integration is the name of the game, and we need to see how we can accomplish that. You know, we are in real life, and you know, sometimes we tackle these projects as if it's an aeroplane that we fix while it's flying. Sometimes you need to sit back and consider all the facts before you start a project. So that's my wisdom that I want to add tonight. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So you're free to, of course, join in the discussion that we are actually having with Irwan, which is taking place right now at the Unity Women's and Feminist Network as well, and your contribution would be welcome in terms of how we might be able to move forward with those pilot projects that Irwan is proposing. That we should be doing, and I'm all for it. And I think we need to build some of these. We're talking about it now. For we are in week 38 of talking about having some of these Unity gardens. We're always, of course, expanding everything. This is why my presentation is so long now, because there are so many things to add, even just in this past week. So, Juliet, you wanted to say a few more words?
Just one sentence, just to support my fellow South African Hendrik, to say that, you know, as much as I always represent the most marginalized, the poorest of the poor, historical disadvantaged, women, children, etc., that I live in a predominantly white suburb, and what you then find that as much as South Africans have to go, or Black South Africans have to go through the healing that we've been talking about, there's always an element. I'm sure that I've also picked that up with Trump and his people in the US, that there's always an element that we also need to recognize that the previously advantaged people also need to go through a certain process of healing. As much as apartheid was lying to us, it was also lying to another group. So when Hendrik is speaking about potjiekos of healing also includes the healing of those people who now have to redefine themselves in the world of equality when they were told a different story. So Hendrik, I agree with you. Potjiekos has to be all inclusive. I mean, you are making me hungry because it's a delicious meal that we'll serve one day. But we need to take a more potjiekos approach to our problems and healing. And I'm just using that example about South Africa. Thank you.
Actually,
I tried to make it one sentence.
I'd like to ask if you could actually put that word that you were mentioning, that you mentioned as well as Hendrik mentioned, into the chat. So I know what it is, because it's difficult to discern how that might be spelled. So if somebody could write it into the chat, can do a little bit of research on that, so everybody knows what you're talking about. This seems like a very local thing to South Africa, but it actually reminds me as well of the conversations originally that I had with members of Drawdown Toronto many years ago, where they were talking about the process of re-indigenization, and the process of re-indigenization is for people like myself and people that have been colonized. People who have colonized minds need to be decolonized. The decolonization process is of our minds, and so it is something for those who are brought up in the dominant colonial system models, for us to learn more than the Indigenous people to learn, because they know it already. Many of them do, even though, again, I've had conversations with, for instance, a gentleman by the name of Douglas Jack in Montreal, who noted as well, because of big issues, for instance, here in Canada, the residential schools, where much of the knowledge of the Indigenous people has disappeared because it was an oral knowledge, and because they went through this system created by the Canadian government, they've lost a lot of their own traditional understandings. So there's sometimes on both sides healing that needs to be done, for sure. If there are no additional comments, it's probably
just sir, that I put in the chat something that everybody can read. I don't have to speak anymore, but I did add something to the chat. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Prophet. So if everybody wants to save the chat, press the three little buttons at the bottom corner of your screen. You can say save chat, so that you will have that information. The information that I put in there and everybody else that put in there, along with their contact information, is hopefully in the chat by now. And so thanks everybody for coming out to week 38 of our Indigenous Global Unity Summit event. This again happens every week on Thursdays. We will continue our discussions and moving forward toward the events that we have for this year to develop our network of networks and deliver the programs of, I would say, healing our communities, one sort of community at a time. Thank you very much, Andrew. Andrew Networks is again our sponsor, promoting all of these wonderful events that we have each week. And I'm looking forward to the conversations as well on WhatsApp and in other forums afterwards. Thank you very much. Good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And this is always replayed on the Facebook group, AHIABGA-Network. So the previous 37, the previous 37 sessions are also there. So you can also join that group and also post your content and comments there as well. This is Andrew Williams Jr. Thanks everyone for attending. See you next week.
Thank you, Andrew.
Blessings
Thank you so
to all.
much. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.